Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 15. You gave them bread from heaven for their hunger, and brought them water out of the rock for their thirst. Bringing water out of a rock is unusual, not normal. That has to be a miracle of God. So God is still in the miracle working business. So God provided for these people by bringing water out of the rock. Water comes out of cistern, pipes, and if we have containers to save rainwater, then we have water. But bringing water out of the rock is not normal, but only God can perform such miracles. So here they are giving God thanks, reminding God what He has done for them. Last Sunday we called this remembering spiritual history. Remembering spiritual history. So they were remembering spiritual history, listing a bunch of things God has done for them. So here in verse 15, they're reminding God how He gave them bread when they were hungry. Verse 15, you gave them bread from heaven for their hunger, and brought them water out of the rock for their thirst, and told them to go in to possess the land, which you had sworn to give them. Verse 16, but they and our fathers acted proudly, hardened their necks, and did not heed your commandments. Let's not do what they did by disrespecting God, dishonoring God, disobeying God. Let's try our very best to be obedient believers, obedient followers of Christ. Look at verse 17. They refused to obey. How can people refuse to obey God after God has been such a blessing? God has been good to us. God has provided for us, woke us up this morning, gave us strength, peace of mind, provided for us. And why would we still not obey? It says here in verse 17, they refuse to obey. In life, it doesn't matter what generation we are in, regardless of the generation, past, present, or future, there's always going to be a caliber of people, a group of people, a set of people who always going to disobey God. Doesn't matter of the generation. Past, present, and future, we are going to find people who are always going to disobey God. So in verse 17, they refuse. They just not disobeyed, but they made a conscious decision by saying and doing disobedience. They refuse to obey God. And they were not mindful of your wonders that you did among them. How can you forget what God has done for you? How can I forget and stay quiet? There's a scripture verse says, if we don't give God praise, if we don't cry out to God, He said, I will raise up the very rocks on the ground to give Him praise. So it's very important for us to give God praise. He says, they refused to obey, and they were not mindful of your wonders that you did among them. But they hardened their necks, and in their rebellion, they appointed a leader to return to their bondage. But you are God, ready to pardon, gracious and merciful, slow to anger, abundant in kindness, and did not forsake them. Look at verse 18. Even when they made a molten calf for themselves and said, this is your God that brought you up out of Egypt. and you worked great provocations. Verse 19, yet in your manifold mercies, you did not forsake them in the wilderness. The pillar of cloud did not depart from them by day to lead them on the road, nor the pillar of fire by night to show them light. And the way they should go. So we're going to stop at that verse today, but we are going to focus a lot on verse 17. So verse 17, we're going to work it just a little bit this morning. So verse 17 says, they refused to obey, and they were not mindful of your wonders that you did among them, but they hardened their necks. And in their rebellion, they appointed a leader to return to their bondage. Now, let's work this phrase right here of this verse. They appointed a leader to return to their bondage. Now, we want to talk about these people who had a conscious decision to return to bondage. We want to talk about what exactly were they going to return to, returning to bondage. Now, we want to talk about their agreement to go back to bondage, and we want to talk about exactly what were they going to return to, going back to bondage, because we have to learn from these people's mistake not to return to bondage. As a believer, you have people who are believers, Christians, born again, followers of Christ, and there's something that most people often say, I don't want to backslide. Basically saying to return to your old lifestyle. So we don't want to return to our old lifestyle. We don't want to backslide. We don't want to go back in sin. We want to stay moving and marching with God. So let's take a page from these people's lives and let's learn from them not to go backwards ever. So we want to go forward ever, backward never, no retreat, no surrender. That's very important as believers for us to go forward, never backward, no retreat, no surrender. So look at verse 17, and they appointed a leader. So to cross-reference this, when they appointed a leader, we can find that in Numbers chapter 14, when they were about to appoint a leader. So they did appoint a leader to lead them back into bondage. So they appointed a leader. Appointed mean it was a done deal. Past tense of appoint. They appointed a leader means it's past tense of appoint, of the present. So they appointed a leader, meaning they were so serious in going backwards. They were so serious, they made up their mind, we're going back. Now, there are times in life we're going to find ourselves between a rock and a hard place. We're going to find ourselves sandwiched between a rock and a hard place. We're going to find ourselves facing some difficulties, obstacles in life. But that does not mean for us to go backwards. That does not mean for us to go backwards. But listen, in life, the moment we encounter challenges, difficulties, roadblocks, we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place, most times the first thing comes to mind for us to go backwards, give up, throw in the towel, walk away, surrender, retreat. But I want to put something in us this morning for us to understand that we are never to retreat or surrender and go backwards from whence we came. And we know we came from some difficult places. So why go back to that which you prayed God to deliver you from? So let's look at it one more time. they, verse 17, they appointed a leader to do what? To go forward, to be a standstill, or to go backwards. Whenever we have a leader, whenever we appoint a leader, that a leader is appointed to do one of three things: to take us forward into success, progress, great success, or at a standstill, to be stagnant, or to go backwards. Anytime a leader is appointed, even political leaders, any kind of leader, political leaders especially, once they are elected and appointed, it means they have chosen this position to take us backwards, at a standstill or stagnant, or forward. Only one of three places: backwards, standstill, stagnant, or forward. Very important for us to understand that. So they appointed a leader, and look why they appointed a leader: to return to what they were familiar with. Now, let's look at this verse in its complete reading. They refused to obey, verse 17. They refused to obey, and they were not mindful of your wonders that you did among them, but they hardened the necks, and in the rebellion they appointed a leader to return to their bondage. But listen, but you are God, gracious, you are God, ready to pardon, ready to forgive, ready to give a second chance, ready to overlook their silly behavior. Gracious and merciful. I said last time, mercy does two things: overlooks our faults and gives us a second chance. So they're saying, God, even when these people were stubborn, rebellious, disobedient, ready to go back into bondage, they said, but you are God. And you're ready to pardon, ready to forgive, ready to give a second chance. You are gracious and merciful. Hear this. Even when these people were acting a fool, acting a clown, he said, you were slow to anger and abundant in kindness, and did not forsake them. So these people, they were giving God thanks that when these Israelites were ready to go backwards, stubborn, hardened their necks, stiff-necked, disobedient, God was still gracious, kind, loving, forgiving, and look what it says, the last portion of the verse, and did not forsake them. Man, when somebody tick you off, you're ready to write them off. But God here was so patient with these people. Why? They were God's chosen people. Israel is God's chosen nation. The Israelites are God's chosen people. So God was putting up with their nonsense. So that's why they were giving God thanks. Remember, this is the longest prayer in the Bible, Nehemiah chapter 9. They were giving God thanks. They were testifying. They were remembering their spiritual history, all what God has done for them. So they were listing a bunch of things. And in their listing, right here in verse 17, they said, God, even when they wanted to go back into bondage, you were still patient with these knuckleheads. You were still kind. You were still ready to forgive. You were still ready to show your mercy. You were slow to anger. You were abundant in kindness. And hear this, and you did not forsake them. Now, let's look at this phrase that says to return to their bondage. Why do you want to go backwards instead of forward? Why do you want to be complacent where you are? You are happy where you are. You are satisfied where you are. You have no desire to improve who you are to go forward. That's not normal. Anybody who is satisfied with where they are, complacent in where they are or with what they have, knowing it's not good, and there's better to gain, that is not a normal person. You have to want more, desire more, want to improve, want to do better. There has to be something in you driving you to excel. There has to be something in you that is ambitious. There has to be some kind of potential in you to say, I want better for myself. You should never satisfied with where you are, knowing it's not the best. Now, if it's the best, then you can say, okay, this is enough for me. But knowing it's not the best, there's better to be had. We should never satisfy with where we are, knowing there's better out there. Now, but look at this. These people, listen, it's not that they were in bondage for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. These people were in bondage for 400 years. So we want to take some time to look at what they experienced in bondage before and what they were ready to go back to. Because that puzzled me all week. What these people were ready to go back to. So look at the phrase, they appointed a leader. They appointed a leader. Appointed a leader. Now let's look at this. They appointed a leader. So the word a leader here is basically, I think the King James, that's the King James. What does it say in verse 7? They appointed a leader or a captain? Captain. Okay, so the King James says they appointed a captain. The New King James says they appointed a leader. I remember when I was a little boy, where we were living, there was a building that people would use for camping. Scouts, church events would be held there. So this scout group came over from St. Kitts, and they were using this facility. And I remember one day my stepfather went up to the place, and he was looking for the leader, the captain, the man in charge, the person in charge. And, you know, back in those days, you know, people were limited in their vocabulary. And knowing my stepfather had limited vocabulary. So my stepfather went up, and most people at that time, when they're trying to find who is in charge, who is a ringleader, who is a captain, or who is a man, who is a boss, my stepfather went up and he said to some of the boys who were hanging out, because I used to hang out a lot among these boys at that time, because we were right across from the building. We lived right across from the facility. So my stepfather went up, and I was there, and my stepfather asked one of the boys, or some of the boys, who is the head man? Who is the head man in charge? So that's a phrase most Caribbean people would use, the head man or the top man. So the word here in the Hebrew for captain is the head, rank, chief, forefront, or top. And that's why the phrase comes from, the phrase a top man comes from the top. Top man means the leader, the captain, the one in charge. And also I said earlier, the head. That's why my stepfather went up and he said, where is the head man? He's looking for the head man. So that's take that into consideration. The head man, the man who is going to be up front, at the forefront, leading. Okay? So they selected a top man, the head man, somebody who is going to be at the forefront. A leader is somebody, or the captain is somebody at the forefront. At the forefront. This is the one making all the decisions for those who are following, those who are behind, those who are coming behind, okay? So they appointed a leader, a captain, okay, to do what? What's the purpose of appointing a leader, a head man, the top man, the man who is going to be at the forefront, the leader, the man who is the top man, the head man, as my stepfather would say? What was the purpose of them appointing a leader? Now, let's find the answer. To return to what? The word return means to turn back, retreat, or it means also, hear this, home again. It means what? The word return means home again, retreat, or to the what? To turn back. So these people were willing to turn back and go back into slavery, or to retreat. Now hear this. Here's the funny part. The Hebrew word for return is what? Home again. So listen, being in Egyptian bondage for them, the Israelites were like, hear this, home for them. Basically, it was like home, sweet home. How can you be in bondage and you consider that home, sweet home? Makes no sense, absolutely. How can you be at a place, at a job, in a marriage, in a relationship, wherever, and it's not comfortable, it's not pleasurable, you're not enjoying it, but you are calling it and considering it home, sweet home? Makes no sense. So they were willing to go back into Egypt to what they were familiar with, and they were willing to go back to call it home, sweet home. Back into bondage to call it home, sweet home. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. So they were willing to return. And you know what? Most times when people find themselves in problems in a relationship, when they already left their parents, first thing comes to mind when the boy acts up, acting a clown, when she's acting up, acting a clown, the first thing each person would say, I'm going back home. Going back home. I'm going back home. Going back home. I'm going to pack up and I'm going back home. Even us Americans, people who come to America, settle down, have a life, have a family, have a home, have a job, whatever. Sometimes when things get hard, the first thing comes to mind, I'm going back home. Going back home. The same place you prayed for God to help you to get a green card to get it off. Now you want to go back home. Back home. Want to go back home. Home, sweet home. And we like to say, there's no place like home. Now, you prayed for God to deliver you from home. God opened the doors for me to go to the UK, Canada, or USA, or Australia, or somewhere. I remember when I left Nevis, now living in St. Croix, every summer I would go home on vacation. And this one summer I went home, and I knew this gentleman who was on the plane with me, sitting right next to me in Liat. And he was first time going to St. Croix. He heard many things about St. Croix. I don't know what his expectations were, but he heard some things about St. Croix. And I was on the plane. He was sitting right next to me, and he was at the window seat. I was in the middle aisle. And as we are landing in St. Croix, I was about maybe 16, 17. As we were landing in St. Croix, this gentleman looked out the window. When he saw where he was landing, he said, is this where I'm going? Might as well go back to Nevis. When he saw, I don't know if he was expecting tall buildings. I don't know what he was expecting. But whatever image he had of St. Croix, when he saw the plane landing and he saw trees and bushes and no tall buildings, he was so disappointed. He said, is this where I am going? Might as well go back home. I tried to cool him. I said, no, man, you will like it. You will like it. Because, I've been living there for 2-3 years now. So I said to him, you will like it, man. He said, I hope so. I hope so. And later on, I ran into him somewhere. And he said, man, I like it. I like it. I like it. But we're quick to return to what is familiar, because we don't want to adjust to the challenges of the new place. So we have to make up our mind, come hell or high water, I'm going to ride it out. I am going to ride it out. So look at the interesting thing. They appointed a leader to do what? To return to their 400 years of hell, their bondage. They appointed a leader to return to their bondage. Now, let's look at what they were returning to. What were they going back to? What are you going back to? They wanted to go back into bondage, but hear this, God prevented them, God intervened. Numbers chapter 14 gave you the whole story of that. Had God not intervened and stopped them from returning to bondage, these people, these Israelites, they were bent on going backwards. That's a shame. And sometimes, even us as individuals, as believers, as born-again followers of Christ, many times, had God not stopped us, prevented us from going a certain route, had God not intervened, we would go back into once we came out of sin. That's why when you meet someone and you say, hey man, why don't you start living your life for God and start going to church? First thing they like to say, I'm not ready yet. Why? I don't want to commit and then backslide. What are they saying? I don't want to commit and then go back into bondage. They're saying they're waiting for the perfect time. There's no perfect time. Just commit, surrender, trust God, and say, God, you help me on this spiritual journey. Amen. God, you help me on this spiritual journey. So had God not prevented them from going back, had God not intervened for them to not go back into bondage, they would have gone back. So the plan was there, the plan was made, they appointed the leader, they had a collective cooperation, but God stopped them. God did what? God stopped them. But yes, three things. They did appoint a leader. The desire to go backward was there. And there was a collective decision to go where? Back. Three things. They, one, appointed a leader to go backwards into bondage. Two, they had the desire to go back into bondage. And three, they had the collective what? They had the collective decision to go back, meaning the decision was made. We're going back. So I could imagine maybe they had already packed some of their bags because we're going back. They were that serious. Okay? They were that serious in going backwards. But God did what? God prevented them and God intervened. There was an intervention from God. So we got to thank God at times to intervene in our lives for us not to go back into a life of sin, not for us to go back to what we came out of. We were struggling. We had a hard time in that relationship. We had a hard time in that marriage. We had a hard time in this or that. Let's not go back to bondage, okay? Let's not go back to bondage. Now hear what they said. They appointed a leader to do what? Go back to their bondage. To their bondage. Okay. Now, let's look at what they were willing to go back to. Now, I have a family member that is from Nevis. And the family member has left Nevis for quite some years. And the family member and her husband had some land in Nevis. And after many years, they decided to sell it. And my aunt encouraged the husband, hey, let's go ahead and sell the land. Why? Because my aunt decided she is not going back. She said, I've made up my mind. I'm not going back. You see, you have to know why you are not going back. You have to know why you want to go back. Okay? To each his own. But like I tell people all the time, when somebody tells me, I'm ready to go back to St. Kitts, Nevis, Jamaica, Antigua, or wherever you're from in the Caribbean, that they're ready to go back, I always pose this question to them. Are you ready for what you're going to encounter? Because remember, you were living here or UK or Canada for quite some time, and the quality of life compared to what you're going to go back to, the cost of living, you have to be prepared for such things like that. Are you ready? I mean, I know you miss home, and there's no place like home. But are you ready for what comes with the package of going back home? Are you ready? I saw someone posted a video, overview video. I don't know how they got it done, or if somebody was flying over, he went at a certain location and was just taking an overview area of the town area and Bath area in Nevis. And he posted it and he said, beautiful Nevis. And I looked at the video and I saw maybe one car and passed by, and maybe 2 minutes later another car drove by. I saw nobody walking around, and I said, am I ready to go back to this? I mean, I've left so long, but it is still slow. It is still very slow pace. So when I saw that video and he said, beautiful Nevis, and I looked at the video, I questioned myself, am I ready to go back to this? No, to go back to that. You've got to make up your mind you're ready to deal with it, live with it, and settle with it. When I saw one car and waiting for another car to drive by, I said, I'm not ready. I'm like my aunt. I'm not ready to go back yet. I'm not ready. Okay? Now, so let's look at what these people were willing to go back to. Let's look at what these people were willing to go. I mean, they were just, no, listen, they appointed a leader. They had a collective decision to go back. They had the desire to go back. Only thing stopped them was God intervened. There was an intervention by God, and God prevented them. That's the only reason why they did not go back. So let's look at what these people were going back to. One, they were going back to severe, cruel, and deadly forced labor that aimed at breaking their spirit and reducing the population. That's what they were. You're telling me you are willing, ready, and able to go back to severe, cruel, deadly forced labor, meaning you were not willing to work. They forced you to work. They made you work. They woke you up to say, let's go. We got things to do, building to build, buildings to build, cities to build. They were forced, okay? That means they did not willingly got up to say, I'm ready to work. I'm excited about the work day. They did not set the alarm, okay? They were forced into labor. And this forced labor was designed to break their spirit and reduce their population. Number two, now we're talking about what were they going back into? Remember, they came out of it after 400 years. Listen, remember when they were in it, what did they do? What did they do? Exodus chapter 3. They cried out to God. And God heard their cry, saw their distress, saw what they were going through, saw their difficulties, saw their hell, and God came down to rescue them and deliver them and set them free. Remember, things were so bad that they cried out to God. What did they do? They cried out to God. Things were so bad. They cried out to God, and God came down and delivered them, set them free. They didn't like what they were experiencing, what they were going through, and they cried out to God, and God delivered them. So one, severe, cruel, and deadly forced labor that aimed at breaking their spirit and reducing their population. Number two, what were they willing to go back to? They were in this, not liking it, not enjoying it. I mean, hoping, praying, believing for a deliverer. But these people decided we are going back into it. Look, number two, they were tasked with building treasure cities like Pithom and Ramses, suffering under harsh taskmasters, and endured the mandated slaughter of their male children at birth. So listen, these people, you remember I said they were forced into labor, hard labor, that was designed to break their spirit. What do you mean break their spirit? Listen, the work was so much that you get to a point where you are not motivated, you're not encouraged, you don't feel like going on. So they were dealing with that, and it was also designed to break the spirit and what? To do what? Reduce their population. Now, how did they reduce the population? Look at it. The slaughtering of their male children. How was the population going to be reduced? They were slaughtering, killing the male children. And you're telling me, you experience so many of your male children being murdered, killed, slaughtered, taken from you. And you're telling me that you are going to appoint a leader to go back to that? Come on, you got to be out of your cotton picking mind. Got to be out of your cotton picking mind. You're going to appoint a leader to go backwards, to go back into that which killed, slaughtered, murdered your firstborn, or all the male children. Not firstborn, but all the male children. And you're going back to that. You are happy with going back to that, knowing that you're going to lose all your male children, because that's how they reduce the Israelites' population. Now think about it. Think about it. Are you willing to go back to deal with this, knowing you're going to lose all your male children? They made a conscious decision. The desire was there. They appointed a leader, and they had a collective decision to go backward to that. Okay? Let's look at something else they were willing to go back to. Remember, they selected a leader to go back into their bondage. What were they going back to? Hard, severe, cruel, forced labor that was designed to break the spirit and reduce the population. Two, what else? They were going to suffer losing all their male children by being slaughtered, killed, murdered, taken from them. They were willing to go back to that. Now, you've got to, something has to be wrong with your head to say, I'm going back to that. Because you encounter a challenge, you're saying, I'm willing to go back to that? No. No. What else the word willing to go back to? The Egyptians made their lives bitter with hard bondage. The Egyptians made the Israelites' lives bitter with what? Hard bondage. Meaning, man, it was tough. It was difficult. Made their lives bitter, not nice. It was not pleasant. And they were willing to go back to that. They appointed a leader to do what? Go back to their bondage. What are they going back to? To where the Egyptians made their lives bitter with hard bondage. What else were they going back to? The Israelites labored without fair wages, meaning they were underpaid. How can you go back to a job that you once left and said they're not paying you enough, but you're going back to it? Now, so they were willing to go back to a job where they were working, but their labor was not fair. Their wages were not fair for their labor. Okay? They were going back to bondage, to where they were being, once again, underpaid. The bosses were robbing them financially. And they appointed a leader to say, I've made up my mind, or we have made up our minds, we're going back to settling for being underpaid. Think about that. Let that sink in. Let that ponder in that. Think about that. How can, listen, if my sister comes to me and tells me, you know what, you used to work where? At Home Depot, right? Yeah. How much were you making an hour at that time? $11. All right. She was making $11. Jeffrey, tell me a job that you were working where you were making $10 or less. You remember any job off the top of your head? Kroger. How much were you making an hour? $9.50. All right. So now you're making, hypothetically, let's say you're making way more than that, right? More than that. All right. If you approach me tomorrow morning and tell me, Pastor, I want you to agree with me in prayer. I'm going back to Kroger's to make $11 an hour, knowing you're making way more now where you are. Jeffrey, I'm not praying with you in agreement. I'm not agreeing with you in prayer, because you're telling me to pray for you to go back into bondage, to make less. Doesn't make any sense. If my sister tells me, well, I'm going back to Home Depot to making, what? How much an hour? $11 an hour. Now she's making $20+ an hour. And if this girl, I'll tell girl, you're crazy. You've lost your mind. Not just your mind, your cotton picking mind. How can you, now look, another reason why, another thing they were going back into again, remember, they were not being paid fairly. Their wages were not fair. They were being underpaid. They worked long hours. And who is taken advantage of here in America most of the time? The Hispanics, or people who are not legal, who don't have their papers. They work long, hard hours, and they're being underpaid because they can't tell anybody anything. They get deported. Yes. Yes. So they have to put up with it. Yeah. I'm not doing it. You'll have to deport me because I'm going to speak up. I'm going to write a note, pass it to somebody, do something. But you will have to increase my wage. Is everybody listening to me? Yes. But listen, let's be real. Realistically, Hispanics and people who are not legal here, having their green card or work permits to work in America legally, listen, most people take advantage of these people. Most people. Because they know I can underpay them, take advantage of them, have them in bondage, in slavery, because that's slavery. That's enslavement. Knowing these people they deserve more in their wages, but you are underpaying them because you know they won't say a word. They won't challenge you. Okay? They were going back into being underpaid. Now, so 4 things we listed so far, that they were willing, ready, made a collective decision. The desire was there to go back into bondage. And we listed 4 things so far they were going back into. Just like people who once were Christians, and all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, you don't see them anymore in church. You inquire where they are, and somebody told him, man, I saw him back at the clubs. You going back to what you came out of, man? You going back to the club where you used to spend unnecessarily? Drinking, smoking, buying drinks for all your friends. You going back to that? You going back to a slave life of sin? No. No, you can't go back. Look, what else were they going back to? So we listed 1, 2, 3, 4 things so far. Let's look at the last thing they were going back to. Hear this. They were going back to what? They lost their freedom. Lost their freedom and safety. They were subjected to the total control of the oppressors, experiencing constant misery and fear. Just like people who are illegal, don't have their work permit, don't have their green card. Anytime you tell them, I need a raise, I'll call the immigration and you better shut up. Anytime somebody who is illegal, don't have their work permit, don't have their green card, said to their boss, I need more money, what they do? They threaten them with fear. I'll call the immigration on you. I'll call the immigration on you. I had a man in the church in Miami, 62-year-old evangelist. He was from the Bahamas, living in America for so many years illegal. And Jeffrey, I got wind, a birdie picked me in the ear and told me that the evangelist already has a piano at his house because he's collecting things because he plans to start his own church. So when I heard the birdie picked me in the ear, now I was 29, listen, I was 29 years old at that time. But when I was 29 and younger, I had a Fidel Castro, Saddam Hussein, and Adolf Hitler mentality back then. I was tough. So Jeffrey, I called the evangelist in my office because I saw things begin to change. He's moving different. He's functioning different. This guy would call me every day, would be on the phone discussing ministry. Calls stopped. I said, something is wrong. Something is up. And man, a birdie picked me on the ear and told me this man wants to start his ministry, wants to start his own church. I called him in my office, and I was behind my desk. He was in the chair sitting, and we were discussing things. And a bunch of stuff we discussed. And I said to him, I said, Evangelist so-and-so, if you ever start a ministry here, I would put immigration on you. The man got so mad, the man hit the desk so hard. Listen to me, I had a very firm desk. The man got so angry, so shocked, so disappointed, I told him I would send immigration on him to deport him. The man hit the desk so hard that he broke the desk and a part of the desk fell on the ground. He said, Pastor, you don't go so low. I'll go that low and even lower, preacher. I had my stern, mean, firm face on. I said, the day you start a ministry here, I will send immigration on you. He said, Pastor, you do not go so low. I said, I'll go low and even lower. Don't you undermine me. Don't you undermine me. You do it the right way. If you want to start a church, let's do it the right way. Don't split a church. Don't undermine me. And I said to him, this is what I said. I said, this 29-year-old preacher will send immigration on you, boy. I included my age. He was 62. What's my point? I'm showing you here. Now, I'm emphasizing on this, Jeffrey, and those of you watching and listening, I'm emphasizing on this to hear this. Why? Because these people appointed a leader to do what? To go back into their bondage. To go backwards. To retreat. To surrender. To go back to the familiar. To go back into slavery, into bitterness. To go back to losing all the male children. To go back and being underpaid. Now, so I'm emphasizing on that to show you. Hear this. They lost their freedom and safety, and they were willing to go back to that. Loss of freedom and safety. They were subjected to, hear this, the total, not a little bit, total control of the oppressors, experiencing constant misery and fear. Constant misery and fear. And listen, I drove up somewhere the other day, and when I drove up, I saw a Hispanic taking out the trash. And when he saw my car, man, he looking, he watching, he looking. I know why. He probably think, is this immigration? I mean, is this ICE? Jeffrey, the man, stop. He's working, but he's looking at me. Why? What is that? Fear. Fear. And these people, the Israelites, they were willing to go back to living in fear. Why? Why are you going back to living in fear? Makes absolutely no sense. As believers, let's not go back into bondage. Let's not go back into the world of sin. Let's not go back into what we used to enjoy as a sinful lifestyle. No. Let's stick with Jesus. Let's stay with God. Let's not go back. Let's not go back. I went home to Nevis one time on vacation after preaching there several times, and I was in vacation, and I went into a shop or a restaurant to eat something, and as I was coming out, as I got to the door entrance to go out, I stood for a second. A lady passing by saw me, recognized me. Hey, Pastor Joseph, and here's the first question she asked me. Are you still preaching? I said, what kind of question is that? Am I still? Why? You know why she asked me, am I still preaching? Because most people expect everybody to be alike, to what? Give up, quit, surrender, throw in the towel, stop being here, this consistent. Am I still preaching? I said, girl, I'm going to preach until I'm dead. Am I still preaching? Because people have been around so many people who, when things get tough, they quit, throw in the towel, walk away, give up. So she's asking me, am I still preaching? What should I be doing now? Selling burgers? Should I be a farmer? Should I be flipping burgers? What should I be doing now? Quit working for God to go work for the devil? You got to be out of your mind. I said, girl, I'm going to preach until I'm dead. I'm going to preach until I'm dead. There's no turning back. I'm not going back to work for the devil. No. I'm not going back to work for who? The devil. The devil. Not going back to work for the devil. These people decided they're going back into bondage. And I gave you a list of things they were going back to. Why are you going back to that which once gave you hell? You cried out for deliverance. You cried out for God to deliver you and help you. And you decide to go back into that? Listen, I know you're tired of my stories, but I have the microphone. And since you don't want to testify, I'll testify. A gentleman asked me to cash a check for him. And to cash the check, I said, sign the back, sign it over to me. He didn't have an account. I said, well, I would have to deposit the check in my account and let it sit until it's cleared. I'm trying to be a nice guy, nice pastor to help the guy out. I deposited the check the Thursday. Didn't clear the Friday. Now, people who are desperate, 2-3 days for them is like a month. When you don't have any money, Jeffrey, and you're desperate, and you know money is coming to you, you can't wait. So, Thursday, I deposited the check. Friday didn't clear. Now, definitely it's not going to be cleared on Saturday. It's not going to be cleared on Sunday. It's going to be cleared maybe Monday or Tuesday. So this guy texts me on Friday. Hey, I said, no, it's not. He texts me on Saturday. No, it's not. The guy texts me so many times on Saturday. Then Sunday, he sent me a selfie. He took a selfie of himself with a mean face. And you know what? He sent me the selfie, and then with a mean face, he said, I've been to jail. I'll go back for you if I don't get my money. Huh? So you're telling me you're willing You know what jail is like. You know, you've been there. You know the experience, the miserable experiencing being in jail. And you're telling me you're willing to go back to that bondage? Because you can't wait until the check is cleared and I bring you your money? I ain't gonna run away with you some change. But he sent me a selfie with a mean look, telling me, trying to intimidate me. Brother, you're trying to intimidate me. A man who has been to the army. A man who has been to the Middle East close to Saddam Hussein. You're trying to intimidate me. You're trying to intimidate me. A man who ran down so many criminals in the Virgin Islands. A man who had a gun ready to shoot, and I had to challenge the man. And you're going to intimidate me. I said, brother, you wait until the check is cleared and I'll contact you. Do not contact me again until I contact you and tell you the check is cleared. But here's the point. He's telling me I'm willing to go back to jail if I don't get my money. Are you that serious? But listen, there are people who have been in jail several times and they don't mind going back, even though it's miserable. But I ain't going. I'll come visit, but I ain't going. I'll come visit you, pray with you, encourage you, but I ain't gonna let anybody cause me to go to jail. I'm not gonna let anybody cause me to go to jail or prison. That's bondage. Hear this. Your freedom is completely taken away. It's in total control of somebody else. Not being in jail and prison. I go when I want. I come when I want. I eat when I want. I eat what I want. I sleep when I want. I shower when I want. Come on, class. Amen. These people were willing to go back to where their safety and freedom was going to be compromised. When somebody stands in front of a judge for a crime, a misdemeanor, a good judge, a loving, caring judge who's concerned about that person's life and future, if the person is going to get a small sentence or just being on probation or just get let off, okay, based on certain stipulations, with certain things they have to do. A good judge would say to that person, listen, you're getting a break right now, but do not come back in front of me. The next time you come back in front of me, it won't be pretty. It won't be nice. The judge is telling the person, don't come back into bondage. Does it make sense? Yes. A good judge, even when you look at Judge Mathis, Judge Judy, all these judges, they're going to give you some kind of warning. Do not come back here with the same nonsense. Straighten up yourself. Don't go back into bondage. Don't go back into bondage. Let's look at some scriptures real quickly and we shut it down. They appointed a leader to go back in their bondage. What a life. What a decision you're going to make. Never hang around people who are going to influence you with their ways, attitudes, and bad decisions to go backward or be at a stagnant position in life. Okay? Never. Choose people who are always progressive, moving forward, making better decisions, not to go backwards or cause you to go backward, okay? Number one, don't ever look back. Don't go backwards, don't look back. 1, Genesis 19, verse 26. Lot's wife looked back. They were told to leave the city. They were leaving, and on their way as they were leaving, she looked back. Oh, listen, all she did, she only... Imagine if she went back. Because in her looking back, she might have been remembering on the good times she's walking away from. Sometimes you just got to pack up and leave. Yes, amen. Forget about what you enjoyed back then. Genesis 19:26, she looked back, and when she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt. She died because she looked back. Imagine if she went back. She died just from looking back. And her husband and everybody else went on forward and their lives were saved. But she looking back, wanting to go back, she lost her life. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10. 2 Timothy 4, verse 10. Where did I tell you to go? 4. And what verse? Hear what it says. Be diligent to come to me quickly. Paul speaking. Look at verse 9, verse 10. For Demas, who? For Demas, this is the name of somebody, a gentleman, has forsaken me. And what did he do? He has forsaken me, and what did he do? And having loved this present world, he wants to go back into bondage. And has departed for Thessalonica, Crescens for Galatia, Titus for Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful to me for ministry. But hear this, verse 10. For Demas has forsaken me and has departed for Thessalonica. Thessalonica was like the Las Vegas in that day. It was a hustling, bustling city. Everything was going on. The nightlife, everything was hip. I mean, it was a bustling city. It was a place where everybody wants to be. The Big Apple of the day, the Las Vegas of the day, is like, I mean, that's where it was happening. It was a major trade route also. It was a major trade route, so a lot of traffic for trade was going through Thessalonica. So it was a happening city, okay? So that's where he wanted to go. He wanted to go back to the Big Apple, the Las Vegas of the day. He wanted to go back. And Paul was grieved. He was upset. He was disappointed. He said, Demas has forsaken me, he has abandoned me. He backslid. Don't go back, or don't look back. All right? We just talked about Lot's wife. She looked back. Demas forsake Paul. And let's look at another one. Oh, let me just mention this. Whenever we vote for politicians, we're voting for them to take us forward into progress, success, a better life, a better future. Okay? Now, but sadly, most times we vote and we know who we are voting for. We vote for politicians who always keep us stagnant, in bondage, or take us backward instead of forward. Listen, let's never vote for a politician or any political party who is going to keep us stagnant or take us backward. You vote for a political leader, a political party who is going to take us where? Forward into progress, success, and a bright future. Never backward, never at a standstill. When we vote and we're choosing a political party, we're choosing to go nowhere else but forward, never back in bondage. Amen? Never back in bondage. Never back in bondage. All right, let's look at one more scripture and we close. Philippians chapter 3. Philippians chapter 3. Are you in Philippians chapter 3? Okay, let's look at verse 13. Philippians 3 and what verse? What did I say? 13 and 14. Hear what it says. Brethren, Paul is speaking. I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward. Everybody said no retreat, no surrender. Forward ever, backward never. Paul says, I am forgetting those things which are where? Behind, in bondage, in the back of me. The past is the past. Forgetting those things which are behind and doing what? Reaching forward to those things which are ahead. Even Paul knows better. Paul says, I'm not going backward. I'm not going back into bondage. I'm done. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm going to close with this. These Israelites, even though they were rebellious, disobedient, selected and appointed a leader to go back into their bondage, back into a list of things I just said were not nice or pretty or enjoyable or pleasurable. They were willing to go back into that. Having their male children slaughtered, murdered, killed, robbed from them, taken from them, being underpaid, being in total control of the Egyptians, taskmasters and oppressors, to have their total freedom, have their freedom taken away from them, their freedom and safety. Going back into cruel treatment, living in fear. Even though they were willing to do that, Nehemiah 9 verse 17 says, God was long-suffering, patient. God still displayed love and mercy upon these people. And hear this, and God did not abandon them or forsake them. God did not. God did not. Even though they made a decision, a collective decision to go backwards, number one, even though they had the desire to go backwards, and hear this, and even though they already appointed a leader to go backward, only thing stopped them was God who intervened and prevented them. If not, they would have done it. Go back into what was miserable. And many times in our lives, we go back into relationships and things that are miserable and not enjoyable. But we rather go back to what is familiar than to take on the challenge to go forward with God. I know a lady got married at age 26. The man she was getting married to was 3 years older. That means he was 29. The wedding was performed, the ceremony was performed. They were now at the reception. And at the reception, there was alcohol. So the man, the husband, got stone drunk. What else do we say when somebody's stone drunk? What's another phrase? Stone drunk, what else? He got lit, what else? What's another phrase when somebody's drunk? What they say in high school. You heard those drunkards in school. Well, they get lit. What else, Jeffrey? They get lit, stone drunk. We got wasted. What else? Come on, Jeffrey, you're from Maryland. What else? So they got stone drunk. He got stone drunk. He got lit. He got wasted. What else? Yeah, you were wasted before, so you know. What else, Jeffrey? Come on, Jeffrey. All right. So he got wasted. He got lit. He got stone drunk. Right? So the man started acting a fool at his wedding reception. I mean, just acting a fool, embarrassing his newly wedded wife. I mean, it was embarrassing. This 26-year-old lady cried because of embarrassment, being hurt, being disappointed, to see the behavior of the man she just married a few hours ago at the reception. The 26-year-old newly bride cried, wept, disappointed, hurt, shocked. And a lot of the family members were at the wedding. And one of her sisters, one of the older sisters, I'll never forget, said to the lady, sitting on her bed, Monday morning, go back home to your mother and father and ask them if you can come back home. Now, this is Saturday. Sunday, Monday morning, go back and ask your mother and your father if you can come back home. No advice as to say, well, he's just drunk. He's just lit. He's just wasted. He's just stone drunk. He's going to get back to normal tomorrow, Sunday, and life will go on as usual. The advice she's giving her sister, her younger sister, just got married on a Saturday. Monday morning, go back over to your parents and ask them if you can come back home. I'll never forget, that lady was my mother. I was 6 years old. It's forever freeze in my mind. My stepfather got wasted, lit, drunk, stone drunk at the wedding, at the reception, and acted a clown. And my mother wept. My mother cried. Embarrassing. Acting a fool at the wedding reception. And her sister Mem, said to her, Monday morning, go back over to your parents and ask them if you can come back home. No advice as to say, work things out. He's just drunk and disorderly today. But she's advice was, and knowing my mom, she ain't going back. And my mother never went back. And she stayed married for 30-something years. 36. My mother kept that wedding ring on. Even when my stepfather passed away in 2015, my mother still wore that wedding ring. Even though he was in his grave. Every Sunday, she leaving that house, she put that ring on. Anywhere she's going out, she put that ring on. Going out to tell anybody, I'm taken. I'm taken. She made a conscious decision. Because her father was not the best father. The home was not the best. They worked them hard when they were younger. She missed her education because they had to go farming and miss school. So she was not going to go back to that. She'd rather put up with what she was dealing with, a crazy husband, than to go back into bondage. She was not going back. And she never went back. She stayed married for 30 plus years. Let's not go back to bondage. Let's not even think about it. As believers, we're going to have challenges. But as believers, let's say we're going to ride the storm out. Jesus is going to see me through. He's going to hold me in the hollow of his hands until the storm passes by. But I'm not going back. I'm not going to backslide. I'm not going back to the world of sin. I'm not going back into my old ways. I'm not going back to drinking, smoking, partying, living a loose life. I am sticking with Jesus. I'm not going back into the hands of the devil. I'm sticking with God. Let's be strong like my mother who said, I'm not going back. And she wrote it out and survived, even though it was tough, but she never returned back. Let's not be like the Israelites who thought about going back. Let's not think about it. Let's stay focused and stay with God.